Welcome to Art to Trade Gaming. I'm the Archmaster. Today we are talking more about my system, Arches and Avatars. This is going to be a slower video. I'm probably not going to speak as quickly. It's getting late. So, today we're talking about the attributes and the attribute aspects, which is a little extra thing I added on to the Bones of 5e. So, you have your 6 basic attributes, except in my system, if you've seen my video about the exploration quadrant, actually no, it was a video on player skill versus character skill. You know that that character skill is best used when the players at the table don't really know anything about the task at hand. Like, okay, cast a spell for me. It's like, well, the character has that skill, I don't, right? But player skill is best used when the player does have some understanding of the task at hand, like searching a room, where you walk in and it's like, all right, here's a room, there's a bed and a table and a chair. The player shouldn't be like, all right, I roll to search. It's like, no, that's something you can do. You can describe looking under the table and going to the chair, right? That's my opinion on it. If it's something you have experience with, you should do it at the table. If it's something you have no experience with, the character should do it, right? So, keeping with that, Wisdom was pretty much, outside of being a spellcasting ability, Wisdom was pretty much just there for perception checks and insight, which is pretty much just looking. I took insight and I gave it to intelligence because I think it's a learned skill. And then perception, I got rid of it because I got rid of perception first, and so after gutting all those spells, I look at wisdom. I'm like, first of all, I've never liked wisdom as an attribute. It doesn't actually make any sense. Wisdom is the ability to make good decisions, wise decisions, being wise. Your character's wisdom is decided by you, the player. Are you an idiot? Are you foolish? Are you going to run into danger and get yourself killed? Or are you wise and cautious and thoughtful? That's you as the player. The GM isn't going to say, hey, you can't be wise and be cautious because your character only has a 5 wisdom score. No. Actual wisdom, like the way we play it at the table, your character's wisdom is decided entirely by you as the player. It is your player choice to be wise or be foolish in any situation. So it's not really a stat. We call it wisdom, but it's really not. Plus wisdom with perception, that's a leap. So I didn't like wisdom at all. I grew up playing Elder Scrolls games. I put willpower in there because, it still works with saves. What we have with a wisdom save, it's like, oh, try not to get charmed or mind controlled or something. Well, that to me sounds like a willpower save. Even more than a wisdom, right? It's like your ability to resist your own willpower, right? So the other 6 attributes are the same: Constitution, willpower, Constitution, dexterity, strength, charisma, intelligence. I just got rid of wisdom and put willpower in there because I think it actually makes more sense. And I didn't have any skills under wisdom anyway after I took out the skills that I didn't like. There weren't any left. I have those 6 basic attributes, but now we get to the good part, the part that actually makes A&A stand out, A&A being Arches and Avatars, A&A instead of D&D. So, if I can find my page again. Your aspects, each attribute has its own aspect. So, essentially, stamina, Constitution, your Constitution score, its aspect is stamina. Every time you make a Constitution check, save, etc., and you roll the die, you mark off a point of stamina. You have a number of stamina equal to your Constitution score. So if you have a 13 Constitution score, you have 13 points of stamina. Every time you make a check, you have to mark off a piece of stamina, and that shows that your character is getting tired, doing Constitution checks, saves, etc. With willpower, your aspect is grit. Same thing. You have a number of grit equal to your score that applies all the way down. And so every time you make willpower check or save, you spend a grit. When you try to make a check or save or anything, you're rolling a die, and you don't have any more of that the aspect. You don't have willpower, or you don't have grit anymore, you don't have stamina, you've used it all, then you don't get to add your proficiency bonus to that check, right? And so it represents your character getting tired. So with strength, your aspect is effort, right? So it's like you're putting effort into your attacks, right? It kind of makes sense, I think. The words are good. Every time you make a strength check, attack roll, anything where you're rolling a die using strength, you just mark up one strength and roll your die, right? It's really simple, it's really easy. It's the same as, marking off a spell slot when you cast a spell, or marking off, an arrow when you fire an arrow. It's just a simple thing. You mark it off and you make your roll. And so when you, say you're making attack rolls, say you have a 15 strength score, you make 15 attack rolls over the course of several days, and then, you're all out, you have to go if you keep trying to attack, yeah, you can still keep attacking, but you're weak, you're tired, you're out of effort, you're spent, and so you don't add your proficiency bonus to it. It shows that you're too tired to actually be any good at this, right? You still have your strength modifier, but not any proficiency that may apply. And if you're making checks without proficiency, then you don't have to worry about it, right? It's not too terribly taxing, but I think it more accurately represents your character actually getting tired throughout the day. With dexterity, your aspect is agility. The aspect of charisma is presence, which is the best word I can come up for it. And the aspect of intelligence is aptitude. So every time you make that intelligence check, cast the intelligence spell, etc., you spend an aptitude. So with these 6 attributes, these 6 aspects, it ties really well into something else, actually into a couple other systems. One, resting. This is how I fix. This is one of the ways I fix resting in A&A over D&D. First of all, in D&D, it's just silly that you can go forever, all day, every day, and you can go day after day after day, making all the attack rolls you want, casting all the spells you want, making all the skill checks you want, doing absolutely everything, absolute haywire, and there's no getting tired. You never wear out, nothing. The only representation of you getting worn out is your hit points, and as I've explained, I don't know if I explained this in a different video or a comment, but as I have explained in the past or will explain again, hit points are not an abstraction. Hit points are actually your real physical damage taken, and I can prove that. I'll prove it in a future video if I have to. So the only representation you have of getting worn out throughout your adventuring day or adventuring week is just hit points. And 5e does away with that too because you get all your hit points back when you take a rest. It's just, it doesn't work. It's not grounded enough. It's not real enough. It's just too high fantasy for me. It's what a lot of people complain about in 5e. It's that, we like heroic fantasy, we like high fantasy, but this is superhero fantasy, and it's not as playable. It's harder to make, it's harder to have a cool adventure, it's harder to tell stories, it's harder to role play a character that's just so superhuman they're not even close to you. It's really hard to actually play the game as regular humans because the characters we're playing are just so crazy. The reality of the world that you regain all your HP when you sleep, it's just too out there. And it creates a lot of other balance problems too. So I say that when you rest, you regain these aspects. Not all of them at once. I actually use the 6 or maybe 7 different types of resting in the 5e player's handbook. You have 7 different resting accommodations, right? Wretched, squalid, poor, modest, comfortable, wealthy, and aristocratic, or opulent. I might change that one. So in my system, you make 5 attack rolls and you spend 5 effort and you make 3 intelligence checks and 2 charisma checks and you're spending all that stuff, right? You go to rest, and depending on your resting conditions, like if a wretched rest is when you're like in a dank dungeon, just locked up in a room, right? In wretched rest, you regain nothing, no aspects, right? So you actually, like, as you're adventuring in dungeons or the wilderness and you're not actually getting decent accommodations, you don't regain much. With a squalid rest, you regain like 1 aspect of your choice. Yeah, you may have spent 7 that day, but you get 1 back, right? So you actually are getting tired over time. With modest, it's like 3 or 3 plus half your level. That these are like optional rules for the GM. If you're playing a more, a less gritty game, you can always let them add half their level to how many aspects they get back, or it can just be a flat number. With something like opulent, you get 6 plus half your level, or 6 plus your whole level, or again, whichever optional rule the GM is using. So it makes where you rest, not just if you rest, where you rest and the kind of accommodations and how much money you spend on those accommodations actually matter. It makes you long for an inn or like a tavern or like an actual hotel or something where they have actual good accommodations. It makes you want to spend your gold and silver on higher accommodations because it actually regains your aspects faster. So I like that a lot. I think it's super cool. It is getting dark apparently. So yeah, this also, the whole resting thing also ties into HP. In my system, you don't regain all your HP when you rest. You regain the same as you get aspects. So in a wretched rest, where you're in a dungeon, dank dungeon, or like out in the wilderness somewhere, no tent, no sleeping bag, no fire, it's a wretched rest, right? You're not really regaining much. You regain no HP and no aspects, okay? You just don't get exhaustion for not resting, right? That's the only thing it gives you. But if you have a squalid rest where, you found, a sleeping bag, a tent, a sleeping bag, maybe a fire, something like that, you regain 1 HP that night. Like the whole rest, you get 1 HP and 1 aspect. If it's a poor rest, you may find a tent and a fire and a warm blanket. Cool, 2 HP. Modest rest is something like a tavern or your home, 3. Comfortable, wealthy, etc. It keeps going up. It's 1 to 6, which is actually the average of like your. It goes from like D12, D8. Like the average roll of a D12 rounded down is 6. So they actually line up with the dice. Anyway, so yeah. Because in my system, most characters only have about 20 HP, like throughout their whole lifespan. You don't really get much more than that. You might have like 25 or 28, by the time you're level 10, which is technically max level in my system, although not really. Then yeah, 20, 28 HP, still, if you regain 6 HP, that's a significant amount. And it's not like, if you ported this straight over to 5e, and you're like, all right, yeah, my players only regain, 3 HP each night from a modest rest. They would take forever. They would have to be resting for months, right? Because they have 60 HP or something. This really only works in my system or when they're in low-level play, which a lot of GMs use low-level play. So if you're playing low-level, you can actually port this right over. But yeah, it fixes the whole long rest spamming thing where, oh yeah, we rest and we regain all our HP. It's like, okay, so here's what this system actually fixes. The 2 things. The one is skill dogging, where everyone tries to make a skill check until they succeed. And in 5e, people have had to come up with reasons why you can't do that. It's like, oh no, you can, one person can roll, or that roll represents your best attempt, or, some other reason where it's like, why shouldn't we continue trying? It's like, well, you can't continue trying until you gain a level, right? That's what they did in older editions. They keep having to come up with these reasons why you can't try again, because they don't actually have any penalty for just trying again and again and again. So they have to just have an artificial limiter that feels fake. It kind of breaks immersion. It's like, oh, I can't because it'd be unbalanced, rather than, oh, I can't because my character can't, right? You're not in the mindset of the character. You're just thinking about the game rules that way. The whole aspect thing fixes that. I see my players, it's like, hey, you have, 10 effort left. Would you like to do, strength check on the door? They do a strength check and they fail. I'm like, would you like to do it again? And they're like, I don't know. Do I want to spend another effort, another strength aspect? Do I want to, right? They can try again. It actually costs them something. So I don't have to limit them with an artificial limiter. They limit themselves when they're like, I want to kind of conserve my aspects. I might need the strength check later. I might need this effort for attack rolls later, and I don't want to lose my proficiency on that, right? So, it fixes that. Secondly, it fixes the whole resting in dungeons thing, where characters are going into a dungeon and they're it frustrates GMs so much when they have this big old long dungeon, which is there to soften up the characters, and they use their second wind and their half of their spell slots and all this stuff. They're using their resources, they're using their potions, they're getting low health, and they're being softened up for the boss. They get up to the boss, and what they're supposed to do is go into the boss and fight when they're low health and low resources, so the boss is actually a challenge, so it's tense, so it's thrilling, it's like, we might die, right? It's supposed to be an interesting time. Instead, the players find a room off to the side, rest, regain to full, and walk in and just destroy the boss easily. And some players actually think that's what you're supposed to do. I don't know who told them this, but it's absolutely not. It's wrecking the balance of the game. You're supposed to go in there after you've been softened up. That's why the dungeon is there. If you were supposed to fight the boss at full health, then there wouldn't be a dungeon. There would just be a boss room. Like, you go into the dungeon, there's the boss. Like, if that's what you were supposed to do, it would be designed like that. But there's a dungeon between you and the boss, specifically so that you don't get to him with full stats. Anyway, this fixes that. Without any artificial limiters, there are so many videos on YouTube where GMs are like, hey, here's how to stop long resting in dungeons, right? They have to have some artificial solution to the problem. The problem is fixed in the system here. It's fixed systemically. We say, oh yeah, you can rest in a dungeon. That's a wretched rest. You get back no HP and no aspects. Go ahead, rest all you want. And so the players are like, oh yeah, we need to rest all the time. They're like, you know what, we won't get anything from resting anyway. We might as well kill the boss. There you go. It actually encourages them, it requires them to actually play the game adventurously, to play the game dangerously. That's kind of the whole point of the adventure game, is to face danger and defeat it and get the treasure at the end, right? It's supposed to be thrilling, and it's not thrilling if it's safe. That's why I don't like safety tools that much, because safety is the opposite of thrill. Safety leads to boredom, thrill, adventure and danger leads to thrill, right? So it's like, let's have some moderate safety tools or some adult conversations in session 0, but in general, let's just have everything be adventurous and thrilling and dangerous. That's That's what keeps players coming back, time after time. So the actual system itself fixes those two problems with this, but it fixes a lot more. No more do you have the thing where, you can use your second wind twice a day and your action surge once a day, and you can use this ability once a day, that twice a day. All of your abilities just use aspects. So if you want to use your second wind and it takes, willpower, because you're just pushing through and you're attacking a second time, go ahead, as much as you want until you're out of willpower. But guess what? You might need willpower for something else later, so do you really want to use it all? Again, the players limit themselves. So players, you actually get more freedom. All of your abilities, it doesn't say once a day or twice a day. It just says it requires this aspect. So as long as you have some of that aspect, you get to keep using that ability again and again. So you actually have freedom with, okay, I have this aspect. Do I want to use it on attack rolls, strength checks? Do I want to save some for saving throws later? Because that might be useful. Do I want to use it on my second win? You have a whole bunch of options. And so you can't just use it for everything, but you get to use it for whichever things you want. And so there's more freedom on your end, less hand-holding. It's a simpler system because it's not like you have this giant page of all the things you can use however many times a day. It's like, no, it's just your aspects, and you regain your aspects when you rest. So in my system, you don't really have an adventuring day. You have more like an adventuring week because, you can rest 6 or 7 times and, regain like an average of 2 aspects each time, or maybe more if you're in a city or a settlement. And then same with health. You can, regain maybe 2 or 3 HP each time you rest, like on average. But that means that, by the end, if you're losing 5 HP and you regain 2 or 3, you lose 5, you regain 2 or 3, right? After a week or two, it's like, okay, we're actually really low, we have to return to town. And that's where you get what I call full rests, where you actually spend 24 hours doing nothing strenuous at all. So, and it has to be in like a safe place. You can go ahead and try doing this in a non-safe place, but good luck. So with a full rest, you cannot carry any weapons or wear any armor or prepare any spells, right? Because that's labor, that's effort. You're wearing armor all day, you're not resting, right? So 24 hours of, you can shop, you can walk around the street, you can carry a dagger, but you can't carry anything more than that. You can't prepare spells, you can't carry armor, you're just a civilian for that time. And then you actually, regain more HP and whatnot. Next, I want to get into, attribute threshold bonuses. Those are cool. And alternate uses for aspects. There's a lot more I want to get into. This video is already long enough. I'll have to make another one. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my patron, Jack McCarthy, for being my very first patron ever. It's wonderful. Like and subscribe, feed the algorithm, please. And see you next time. God bless.